Sustainability is at the heart of our industry's future. In this session, and together with Matthew Jackson, strategic consultant at RIB, we'll explore key insights from our latest sustainability survey and engage with industry experts to discuss actionable strategies for creating a greener, smarter construction industry.
And welcome back to RIB Unites. My name is Matthew Jackson, Global Strategy Lead here at RIB, calling in from Copenhagen. Today, we're going to talk about the sustainability imperative, building a greener construction industry. I'm very glad to be joined by Kritika Kar-Bundi, who is Head of Sustainability at Henning Larsen Architects, calling in from New York City, and Jonathan Monkley, who is Digital Director at WSP and co-founder of Zero Construct, a global non-for-profit, calling in from Manchester in the UK. Hello, guys.
Hello, Matthew.
Hi.
So we're going to start off with some fact hunting. I'm going to present the results of a recent sustainability survey that we sent out to our clients globally. We had some great feedback from construction companies all across the world. And we're just going to go through some of those pointers, and then we're going to open the floor to Jonathan and Kritika to discuss those results and see why the results are the way they are, but also importantly, how we can move forward into better results. So one of the first things we looked at was asking the audience, are you estimating, tracking the emissions of your construction projects? And 4% answered that they are doing it on most of their projects, 9% on all of the projects that they can, 17% on a small majority of projects, but 70% have stated that they are not tracking carbon emissions on their construction projects currently, which is a very high number, and we'll deal into that a little bit in a second on why we think that number is so high. Secondly, we asked them about the industry commitment. We've asked these questions before. This is not the first time that we've done the sustainability survey here at RIB, and in 2023, 32% of the respondents said that they have made a formal commitment to reduce embodied carbon emissions in their projects. There was an improvement in 2025. This has gone up by 7% to 39%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider that construction is responsible for 12% in a new case for construction and 28% for the existing built environment, a 7% change does represent a very large amount of CO2 on a per annum basis. What is quite positive, I think, is that a lot of people within our industry do feel responsibility for developing, construction, operating buildings, and they need to do more to cut those carbon emissions. 60% believe that we as an industry are responsible, with 58% consider themselves to have absolute responsibility in this. This is an up of 10% since 2023, which again is a very positive sign that the industry is starting to understand not that we just have corporate responsibility, but also individual responsibility to make sure that these things happen. And finally, one of the big and very spread answers, which is not a huge surprise from my personal view, having been involved in this industry and sustainability for quite some time, is where are the drivers from change coming from? Not a huge surprise. 25% from client customer expectations and 25% from legislation. These seem to be the big drivers. We've got laws coming in all over the world, both regionally where I am, but also across the continent. But also we are seeing a big expectation from customers, as well as all these other reasons which we lay out before you. So those are the key results. It was a quick fly through of those results because we're not here to listen to me. We have an expert panel who has joined us, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and bring them to the floor. So, hello, John, and hello, Kritika. So, first things first, any big shocks and surprises from those initial survey results that you've seen, or is it kind of business as usual?
You want to go first, John?
Yeah, so I'm not shocked at all, to be honest. The first statistic on measuring carbon makes total sense. The survey doesn't surprise me at all. Putting my WSP hat on, a large chunk of my team's work comes from the London private sector commercial real estate, where carbon and flagship projects are very much at the agenda. Interestingly, Fire Stopping and Building Safety Act is taking precedent over carbon reduction on some of those projects now. Obviously, safety is important, but outside London, where again, a good chunk of our work comes from, those non-flagship projects, the kind of business as usual type projects, carbon is nowhere near as high up the agenda. And Critica is nodding away there. So hopefully.
It's a similar situation here in the US. I see most of the projects that I do have a need for any sort of embodied carbon emission analysis only because of green certifications. So I would say client expectations are purely driven by any sort of green certifications that they want to go for. Legislation is trying to catch up, but I would say US is still trying to understand what it means to even have this kind of legislation roll out. The city of Boston, I think this was last week, they rolled out a net zero carbon zoning policy, which is the first of its kind. So it's a big success for us, but how it really translates into action is yet to be figured out, I would say.
I think a lot of people forget how broad the industry is as well, right? So one thing that we all know is that housing actually takes up a very large percentage of construction spend. And that's a very kind of sparsely kind of a broad industry. There's a lot of players in that industry, and the supply chain is extraordinarily complex, right? So I think that that's another kind of quite interesting take on this, that I think is that the asking people if they count or track is one thing. Asking how they do it,
Right.
or how it's enabled, is something else entirely, right, John? And you laughed there for a second, but I know this is something that you have been going through with your team currently, on how do I measure a thing that I've never been asked to measure before. I've been asked to, obviously you've been asked to measure cost before. We know how accurate our cost expectations are when we deliver projects. So what's your thinking on that, on kind of almost the technical enablement of this kind of process?
I think the technology is maturing during the design and concept phase, potentially. I don't think the databases and the data driving those tools is up to speed yet. I know there was a big discussion in the Zero WhatsApp around the credibility of EPDs or environmental product declarations last week. Because basically there was an article saying how inaccurate a lot of those are at the moment, which there's a benefit to have a good EPD. But I think once you get to site, the measuring in and out of products to the majority of building sites is just not there. It's the only real way to measure it. You can create a concept that is super low carbon in machine learning driven optimization tools, but you only really know the impact of those design decisions when you physically build something, and that is nowhere near as business as usual yet on projects or particularly projects I'm involved in. I'm sure there's some really good examples, but I'm not seeing huge amounts of, at the end of the project, here was the embodied carbon in the asset, as an example.
Right. Yeah, post-construction analysis again of what it actually was. I completely agree. I think a lot of these analysis are being done in concept phases, which I do see a benefit in, because that's how we impact the design. We compare, like, is the structure really optimized from an embodied carbon perspective? Can we switch out some materials for the others? But you're right that it doesn't really, like, we don't have a system in place that analyzes it post-construction, that did it really translate what we said early on? And is it the same design or same number that we had up front? Or what is the comparison and what is the degree of change? That's true.
Anyone seen a project where that's happened yet?
There's probably one or two. But I mean, I think it's that there's going to be those gold cases, right? And I'm sure for those of you that are watching, of course, many of our customers at RIB, if you do have projects, and this is the really good thing, like if you have projects that are achieving these kind of things, then please do send them in to us, and we will be very happy to publish the results of these excellent projects, right? I mean, a lot of the work that you do, John, right, at Zero, it's about sharing good case studies, but also learnings as well, right? I mean, like, I think this is a massive other part of it, is a lot of people just don't know where to start.
Yeah, and I think there's a really good one of the discussions we had in Zero. I mean, this goes back years. Embodied versus operational. like operational usage is quite tangible. So you can measure energy, you can measure the use of air conditioning systems, etc., etc. That's very tangible. You can do that. There's platforms selling that kind of service, but the amount of energy emitted to produce a building during year one is huge, and operational and embodied link up together. If you have a really well commissioned asset at handover, it will be operationally efficient. But the idea of here's how much carbon is in the building at the point of handover might be a bit of a unicorn still, to be honest, at the moment. I don't know.
Right. And it becomes even complex when you talk about housing, Matt, as you were saying before. Here in New York City, affordable housing is a big issue. And how do we build and supply new, or how do we transform and upgrade the older housing is a big question. And this embodied versus operational always comes up. What does it mean to add more insulation? Yes, we are making them more efficient from an operational perspective, but what about the embodied carbon? So lots of good questions to answer when we come at these concepts around housing.
John, up to you.
I was going to mention, so that I always bring up a story of, so I live on it's now a 10-year-old new build housing estate in the UK. I've lived here for 5 years, and my road has been dug up 5 times since I moved here. And I've asked several times why it's been dug up, and they're checking what's down there, even though they installed it. So I being in construction, I chased this issue back to the developer, and basically, cut a long story short, they allow for this wastage and this cost in the development, and they pass it on to the buyers purely because they can get away with it. Now, all I saw when they was repeatedly getting dug up was wasted carbon, weirdly. Not the fact that it was a total chew to drive on it, but that kind of just blasé approach to, we can get away with it probably because there's a housing crisis and people need houses, but
Right.
just throwing money down the drain because they can get away with it was a little bit annoying for me. But they just accept it. They said, this is how we do it. We allow for the cost in passing on to the end users. Ultimately, I paid for my own road to be dug up 5 times, which is a bit sad.
I was going to say, but you're the consumer in this situation, right? So you've paid more for your house, whatever that is, right, in monetary terms, due to construction inefficiency there. Specifically, we've made allowances for basically making a mess. I think that's interesting because, and that brings me on to one of the survey points, which we showed that just under 50% of our respondents felt some level of personal responsibility to solve this problem. It's now chasing 60%, and again, 10% in 2 years, not a huge jump, but positive in that direction, right? That kind of, I think maybe that understanding. Kritika, what's your kind of thoughts on this, that kind of personal responsibility as well as corporate responsibility in this space?
We're seeing more and more of this. So I also work a lot with student residential projects, and when we do, let's say, whole building life cycle analysis, we look at all of the tangible aspects, right? We look at the operations, we look at embodied. But we've seen that in a typology like student residential, where you have 600 beds or more, the onus also falls on the students on how they really work and use a particular building. So for example, if we are designing something in California where the climate is favorable and the students can rely on natural ventilation, we don't have to keep mechanical ventilation on the whole time. But a lot of questions arise, like what if the students leave their window open where we have mechanical ventilation also going on? So a lot is coming down on how students see they have a role to play in looking at the sustainability of a particular building. And we're seeing more and more university projects ask us to do occupant behavior workshops. So yes, we have the tangible aspects on sustainability, which I know is very much what falls under the domain of John and Matt. But as a designer, we also look at how do occupants behave in a building and how are we designing spaces for future. So there is no seepage of carbon through these smaller actions.
John, over to you, kind of the same sort of question, right? Do you think that this is going up because of things like education and communities, some of the work that you and I do, or do you think it's just filtering down now to the people more generally?
I think it's a couple of things. I think then potentially people new to industry that are more driven with this stuff. We know that the next generation, we're old now, Matt, is much more focused on this stuff. We know from the Zero community, the next generation is extremely passionate. They want to work in industry that wants to improve itself. It's a bit like when we joined, digital was the thing that was going to fix the industry, and it hasn't really. But also as well, potentially, clients may be driving that transition. Maybe in some cases, because there is a need to service clients' requirements. All our developers, all the clients I work with, carbon falls out somewhere. Therefore, it doesn't necessarily mean it does anything, but there's always a discussion around carbon or sustainability or waste usage. So it might be a little bit of that as well. And we know from the discussions with developers that we have in the Zero community, particularly those in South Korea and the Asian markets, the business case for sustainability is all they talk about, and they want to make it happen. They want the business case to stack up. They want the numbers to stack up. But that's what drives them. They're not going to invest in developments if it's going to cost them more money. They need better return on investment, better net lettable area for sustainable projects. So it's starting to filter down in various different ways, I think.
Beautiful. Kritika, Jonathan, thank you ever so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. To everybody on the RIB Unite audience, thank you for joining us. We hope that you've really enjoyed this session. Please make sure you reach out to all of us and follow us on LinkedIn to see more of these wonderful insights that we can bring to you on this great and very important subject. And importantly, have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Today marks the first of a number of shoots that we'll be doing around the world, capturing footage of our customers to use in our upcoming global brand campaign. My name is Kim Immelman and I head up global marketing at RIB Software. RIB is a global software company that develops software purpose-built for the architecture, engineering and construction industry. Our purpose is to make engineering and construction more efficient and sustainable, and we do that through an extensive portfolio of products that supports the project lifecycle end to end. As the heroes of our story, we brought our customers here today so that we can bring the campaign to life in an authentic and relatable manner.
I've been working with RIB for the last 15 years, and what I found in those 15 years was that the people that work for RIB are as invested in the projects as we are.
Our customers have a vision, and we exist to help bring that vision to life. And that's exactly the message we want to land with our campaign line: you see it, together we'll see it through. Our customers sit at the very heart of what we do here at RIB, and they're faced with a number of challenges in an industry where the only constant is change. Cost and time overruns, gaps in quality, productivity, communication, talent shortages, and of course, a really heavy contribution to global carbon emissions. We exist to solve those challenges, and so together with their vision and expertise, and our innovative digital technologies, we can build better together.